Here's the story of 2020. It was a year for us to live in sync. So many things that need our understanding. It's time for us to think. It's the story of fellow humans who were busy with lives of their own. But they thought of bringing us together, and we can watch from home. We can all make this world much better. It's about what we're willing to confront. So sit back and enjoy the conversation of these rainbow warriors called the Queer Bunch. The Queer Bunch. The Queer Bunch. It's a great day to watch the Queer Bunch.
Queer Bunch! Welcome, viewers and co-hosts and guests. Today we are talking about a topic that has impacted many of us very often. It's a topic that not only has impacted us, but has also impacted modeling agencies, magazine covers, and even the porn industry and movies. We're talking about our body image and its impacts on our mental health. Queer people have had the challenges with body image challenges and still continue today in many forms. We will talk more about that throughout the show, which I'm very excited about to also introduce my guest for you. But before we do that, let me check in with my co-host first. Co-host, talk to Daddy. How are you doing?
Talk to Daddy.
And tell me what excites you about today's topic.
And you know what? I'm gonna pick up from here. We were having a conversation a couple of days ago, Kero and I, about the power of words and realizing that how much it could last with us. I was just describing that it doesn't your body type an issue. It's just what people say to you. So when I was younger, when I was in my teens, a lot of my sister's friends would say, your skeleton brother or your skinny brother, and it just kept hitting me, and to the point that for a while, going to the beach, I would wear long sleeved shirts and long pants because I just hated my body, and it lasts with you for a long time. So just to understand the power of the words and how it affects us. So yeah, that's I am excited to dive into this topic. I think it's just we always imagine it that it's people making fun of overweight people, but I think anything that's persistently hammered at you is harmful. Kind of thing.
Thank you, Antoine. Ticha.
Hey everyone. Yes, body image and perceptions, big thing for me. I mean, growing up, they kept trying to put me in dresses and things, and I remember the first pair of pants I ever got, and I've got a school photo in it. I think I was like 9 or 10, and I could see my picture. I even looked more comfortable, but I didn't realize it for a long time after. But the whole idea, yeah, body image and perceptions and judgment. So that is all.
Thank you so much, Tisha. That's very powerful. Viviana.
Wow, what can I say? You know, this topic, especially as a trans woman, it's something so difficult to talk about, actually, because we have to deal with our own way of perceiving things, but also what society is telling us to do. And on top of that, what the community, the LGBT community, is expecting from us. So it's just, we don't only have to deal with one thing. It's like we had to please 3 different groups just to be or have the idea of what they want us to be. So this topic is going to be very interesting to discuss.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you, Viviana, for this insight. Ty.
Hi everyone. So I'm actually quite excited as a brown gay man to talk about this body image. And I think what I like about it is such a diverse topic when we talk about body image. And I mean, right now itself, Anton, Tisha, all of us spoke about different variations of body image. I mean, one thing that strikes me is today when we have to click a picture of ourselves to upload it onto Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, I mean, the first things people go to are filters. And that is, again, trying to change what you naturally look like, you know, for the world, because you want to create a perception and a look that you feel people will accept. And I think that's why it's really important for us to talk on this particular topic, especially for people of color, because that confidence is so far from reaching for most of us. And yeah, that's why I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ty. I mean, I'm very excited to talk about this topic because it's something that has affected me for such a long time, and trying to fit into different groups of gay men, whether it's a bear, a fox, an otter, a monkey, I don't know anymore. There's so many groups. So it was all over the place, and it impacted how I saw myself, right? But then I've learned a lot, and everything's changed in the best of ways. And I'm so excited to talk about this topic today, especially with two incredible guests that we have today that have so much to share on that. They've done so much work on just that topic in general with themselves and for the public, and for our communities that we serve, really. And it's just fantastic. So I'm going to introduce them right now because it's about time I introduce them. So first, we have the incredibly sweet and kind and gorgeous inside and out Jodh Singh, who uses the pronouns he, him. Jodh is the Gay Men's Health Programs Coordinator at Moyo Health and Community Services. And before joining Moyo, Jodh founded the Queer Sikh Network, an LGBTQ plus resource platform for Sikhs, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
It is one of a kind, yeah. He's also a research assistant in that word. Epidemiology at the Dalai Lama School of Public Health. And in his spare time, he enjoys hiking, researching history, and organizing events for the queer people looking to create a family, a network, and long walks on the beach. I had to add that. Beyond all that, Jodh has been pushing for body positivity of queer brown bodies on social media, and they are stunning. Let me tell you, some of the recent posts he's done, I am so captivated of the beauty of it, and it's such a powerful message behind them. So Jodh, how are you doing, and how are you feeling about today's topic?
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. First of all, it's always a pleasure working alongside you, Kero. Yeah, honestly, I'm feeling excited about some of the things that we're going to unpack and talk about here today. And as you mentioned, yes, creating space for different types of bodies, and understanding how we view and the opinions that we hold about certain body types, from stereotyping those body types to the racial opinions that we hold about certain body types as well. And for me, this is a very personal conflict, because it also ties back to my experience within my family and how worthy your voice is dependent on how skinny or how fit you are. So I'm excited to unpack this conversation today.
Awesome. We're so happy that you're here with us today, Jodh. Thank you so much for that. And next, we have another incredibly sweet, kind, and gorgeous human with us, whom I also call my personal angel for many reasons. Jake Farr uses the pronouns they, them, as well as he, him. And Jake is also a registered clinical social worker in Ontario with an emphasis on addictions and human sexuality. They are also an advocate in the community and interacts members of government and challenge them to support the 2S LGBTQI+ community locally, provincially, and federally, which is wow. They're also the longstanding member of the board of directors at Famous People Players, where disabilities become abilities. I love that, by the way. I love that line. When I read it, I'm like, I gotta use this. Now, they are also the president of PFLAG and facilitator and creator of the Gender Journey Group, helping trans youth navigate their journey of self-discovery. And finally, they are a proud parent of 4 children with their partner of over 25 years. I'm living for this.
Nice.
Jake, I'm so happy you're with us today. How are you doing, and how are you feeling about today's topic?
Well, I'm doing great today, thank you. What a pleasure to be here, and a surprise to be invited. So thank you very much for me to be able to take up this space. I am actually a little nervous about talking about today, because my journey around body image and body images has been long, just like you all have talked about the images we got. And because of my trans identity, I have carried a lot of other stuff from how I was sexed at birth and how my body was transformed through my puberty years, and then you know, sitting in that very toxic masculinity space sometimes that trans men get into. And I will state that because I am one. So I'm going to talk about that because I think there is some masculinity issues about like you have to become super macho in order to be trans enough. So I think I'm a little nervous and we'll go from there.
Yeah, just remember for everyone here, this conversation could also be very triggering for a lot of our viewers and ourselves. So look after yourself, self-care. If you're not ready to talk about something, it's also okay. We're never going to force you to talk about something you're not ready to talk about. We'll absolutely respect that. And that's what makes this show so great, is that there's that respect, and our viewers get to learn about boundaries and triggers and so on, and understanding how to navigate a conversation like this, especially for queer people. And I think it's so important. So thank you for sharing that, Jake. Absolutely. Now, Jake and Jodh, we are so excited to have you both on the show today, and I can't wait to have this very important and much needed conversation with you both. But before we do that, we'll be right back after this commercial break. So don't go anywhere.
Tyler!
I just found out I've got HIV. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm scared.
Hey, I know you're scared. I've been living with HIV for 25 years, and with treatment today, I'm living a long, healthy life. You can too.
Maybe I will be okay.
Welcome back, folks. Today's topic is body image and its impact on our mental health. So let's get this conversation started right away, starting with Ty. The floor is yours.
Wow, I get first picking.
Yes, you
Yeah,
do.
you're
As our new
This will be
co-host, honey.
the last time you do that.
Okay, so I'm going to put this question out there, and I think it stems from our introduction. And I know, Joe, this is something that you and I have spoken about in the past. Body image has definitely been something that has impacted people of color, and especially, you know, the brown community. And I think a lot of times we as brown people get stereotyped or tokenized, especially on social media, dating platforms, and various areas where we put ourselves out there. And that has led to a lot of our community folk going to act to the extent of modifying themselves, whether be it, you know, spending hours at the gym, running, doing whatever it takes to basically look in a particular way. So with all the work that's been going on, do you see, do you both see enough that's being done to help people really appreciate themselves and love themselves for who they are? And if you do have to see this change, what should it look like? I mean, especially in the line of work that we all do, like what kind of steps should be taken to bring about that change to help people of color really love themselves and appreciate themselves?
Joe, do you want to start?
Yeah, you know, I think it comes down to, first of all, the first part of your question about is there change and is there kind of any work happening? I think there isn't much change happening. I think there's a lot of I love using Instagram. I don't understand Twitter. I don't understand many of the other platforms. So Instagram is where I'm most active. And I would say a lot of the bodies that I'm seeing on Instagram, they're always just the same: slim, slender, muscular white guys. The occasional black body thrown in there, and the occasional mixed race body or biracial body that's thrown in there. But some of the arguments that I've been making, which maybe Kero alluded to earlier on, were around how we never see any bodies that are, you know, from South Asian backgrounds, and the terms and the ways in which we find them, you'll never find words like sexy or hot or stunning or good looking. And when you type in South Asian men, those don't come up. They're just not there on the internet. And so, yeah, I think there isn't really much work happening out there to support these conversations around other racialized bodies. And when they are placed on certain platforms, they're tokenized in certain ways. I think, Kero, you might remember I did a small shout out at Scruff. And I was like, okay, I'm looking through your app here, and I'm looking at all these images of bodies. They're all one type. There's the occasional fat body that's thrown in there. There's the occasional chubby body, but most of them are muscular men, most of them are white, and I have to rely on a black body or a Middle Eastern body to essentially represent every other person that exists on this planet, and essentially those bodies are what speak for me, but they don't. And so I essentially was just tagging them, arguing with them, till eventually that they kind of took note of what I said and reposted some of my images on their story. And I said, well, that's not good enough. Stories last 24 hours. They're not posts. I want something static. It doesn't have to be me. I gave them a plethora of other brown bodies to pick from, and said, pick from one of these, host them on your story. Are you trying to say that they're not sexy? They're not good looking. They're not good enough bodies for you. And we're still yet to see a change in that. But going back to my point, there's not enough work happening online from what I see. And I think the way that change happens is by people taking up that space. And I think the messaging as a community, if we're working within communities as well, is also changing that narrative of what bodies we give access to, and also the way in which we deliver that message. I find often enough the message can be delivered in a way where it seems like it's almost crying about the fact, or sorry, I'm kind of losing my words that I want to say, but essentially it comes across in a way that's very bitter rather than just educational. And this is how we get from point A to B. It comes across as very reactionary. And I think we need to move out of that reactionary stage, because when that happens, you lose kind of all sense of the argument. Whereas if you're able to just define cut points of like, this is a problem, this is how we fix it, and this is maybe some of the ways in which we need to change our behavior, as opposed to kind of putting other people under fire or being very, again, reactionary about the way that we respond to folks.
Absolutely, Jodh. And I actually want to add to the word tokenization that you used, which is a word that we hear as people of color very often. We're tokenized, but also fetishized, right? Our brown bodies are fetishized. They're used, oh, okay. So it's like nonstop, right? Jake.
Yeah, so as a person who is not of color, and I don't hold the same space as that in a way, because like for me, if I want to look at something, all I have to do is pick up social media or watch TV, and I see people of color, right? I mean, not of color, like white skin, and it's. But I'm a person who recognizes that there's a lack of it. So that's my only thing that I can say from my perspective around this, is that I see it, and in any space that I can, I say, hey, wait a minute, we're not doing that. So the only thing that I can say that I've maybe kind of done in activism in this space is there was particular doctors who were doing surgeries. I'm just to say, chest reconstruction surgeries for trans folks, and they never put on brown people's bodies. And there was no way that they were not performing surgeries. And what we found out was, after pushing, was that they sometimes the skin it reacts differently to surgery than someone who is of white skin, and they weren't putting them on for image. So what was happening is all these folks out there who are people of color, like, and wanting to have this, they had no way to understand what their bodies were going to look like. So I can't take up the same space for, like, because I only have my space and my vision, and I'm trying to grow. But I can say that there was spaces that I recognized, even in my community, that there was a lack of space for people to understand what their bodies were going to look like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as for that, I mean, so that I can only do the work that I can and continue to grow and go, whoa, boy, I got to get my white lens off and get some other things going on.
Mm-hmm. So, and thank you for that, Jake. And it's so important what you just said, recognizing that you are white, right? So, and that's the process. And I think it should encourage our viewers also to understand when to see their privilege in terms of that, and how they are affected, and be able to speak up and show allyship and support for more brown bodies to be, or black bodies, Asian bodies to be represented in so many ways, and the work, and especially of how they're going to look like, right? So I think that's so important as well. Thank you for sharing that. Viviana.
Wow. Well, I think here it's just adding to Ty's question. It's now let's talk about the challenges that the trans individuals has to face when it comes to this topic, especially the biggest challenge we had to face about the mental health issue when it comes to how to transition, and are we doing it right? Are we doing it wrong? Who are we doing it with? Who are we pleasing? And who are we looking, to look like to a transition, especially when it comes to such the diversity that there's among our population.
Mhm.
So that's something to really think about. And here, I think here will be, and I'm gonna focus specifically on the youth, the trans youth, how they're like going to do this in a proper way. I don't want to say the right way because everybody has their own right way, but the proper way. So coming from you too, like what would be a good advice for this youth who are trying to transition, especially those youth of color, and how they will, try to overcome the challenge of that image challenge of how that's supposed to look, or how to overcome that challenge itself and a whole, because it's too broad.
Yeah.
What would be a good advice? Something.
Jake, you want to start?
Yeah.
Well, that's a can of worms. I mean, that's just like, wow, advice. That's hard because you're right. Everybody's journey is different, right? And for me, again, I can't speak to a journey around someone, like I can barely speak to someone else who has white skin, let alone speak to transitions for folks. Now, for me, I see more of fat phobia in my vision from medical, right? Because we have this whole thing about like, well, if you weigh too much, you can't transition, all this, stuff. So I see a change that needs to be made again in there, and then add a brown skin body to that and fat phobia. I mean, you're just talking a disaster in the medical field, right? So, boy, advice, get lots of support. I mean, find a mentor.
Yeah.
Really, I think mentorship is like the most beautiful thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I love that, Jake. Actually, mentorship is such a wonderful thing. And I mean, I've experienced it with you at the Gender Journey group, and how these youth are so incredibly resilient, by the way. They're just so wonderful. And they've impacted me so much, and I've learned so much from them. So not only did I feel like a mentor, they mentored me as well. So yeah, absolutely. Jodh.
Yeah, as a non-trans person, it's very hard and difficult to answer that question. I feel like I have a lot of queer transic friends who have undergone some top surgery, and I will say that there are a couple of trans folks that are close friends within my life, and I do notice, even just on the internet as well, they're always slim, slender bodies. There's never any larger bodies when you look at trans bodies that are masculine trans bodies that are portrayed online. And so, yeah, I think the friends that I know that I could connect folks to, I think it's mainly going back to peer support and connecting people with the communities that they come from, and also being able to find them a peer who can talk them through that journey, also that relationship that they have with bodies. It's a very difficult one to answer as a non-trans person, and has never been through any of that kind of experience myself.
Yeah, and then thank you both for that answer of how difficult it is to answer that question. I think it's a reality check for us and our viewers to realize how hard it is already for a trans youth or trans person, if they are thinking of transitioning, and the complications, and let alone what you said, Jake, about the medical field also, like, fat phobia. Like, I mean, it's so difficult, and I never thought of that before, actually, until you just said it right now. I was like, holy crap. It just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Co-host, do you have something that you want to add to what we're just...
So you make a good point that actually is freaking me out. If the professionals can't answer the question, then imagine a person going through it.
Oh.
Don't even talk to me about medical.
I want to share like a personal...
So wow.
Yeah, no, I want to share just a personal
story.
I want to share an event that actually happened to me. Not an event, it was an idea that happened to me. Like I have mentioned, I'm actually competing at this pageant, right? It was supposed to be a beauty pageant. But when I was looking at the girls and then the photos, and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I'm to that level of confidence, to feel confident with my body to compete against them. And I was 10, and I'm already transitioned. Well, to me, I already fully transitioned, so I don't need to go any far from that point. But even at this point, I was 10 to make changes in my body just to feed and have more chances of winning. And I was like, is that right for me? If I want to do it, it should be because I wanted it, not because I think I need to. And this is just happened to me like right now. So actually I took my time and I was like, just wait, hold. And then this is what happens. And we're talking about the social media. When I got to meet them in a video and there was not filters and there were not things, I was like, okay, I think I am up for this game.
Yeah.
So that changed my mind. But this is something that even after you transition, you still had to deal to continue with what's going on with the new changes that are happening in society. So this is not a stop thing, that it just you get to a point of transition and then you're saved.
Yeah.
This will continue until who knows when.
Yeah. And Jake, you were mentioning that earlier with your own journey, right? So how does that, if you want to elaborate more on that, actually?
Yeah, I think it's that whole thing, and I really, I know I'm shifting this. I'm really trying to work on shifting narrative around, like us poor trans people, like we're always have mental health and addictions, and like I'm really trying to change that. But there is some stuff, because when society kind of like in general society is telling you like your body doesn't exist and you shouldn't exist and you're a terrible person and you're not real, there's that space to get negativity. So I'm just saying, for me, growing up, I was seen and I had a body that estrogen produced, and I didn't like it. I didn't understand what was happening, but I didn't like it. And so when I was trying to take care of myself and my body, it never got to what I could see in the mirror. Like in my brain saw something, right? Like I wanted to have some muscles. I want to have some definition. Like, doesn't matter. Whatever I did, diet, whatever. What happened when I dieted, I actually got more curvy, which was like even worse. So, and so then I got such a space where I was like, great, if I'm just have fat, whatever I want to call myself, then I kind of was square. And so that was really great. And also then no one noticed me. And so it was a great space to be in, because like no one ever talked to me. It was like, great, I'm a fat girl and no one talks to me. It's like, yay. And so then, then I started making this switch around. Wait a minute, what's going on? But then it was like a big thing about this trans masculinity. It's like, yeah, you got to go to the gym and you got to like have these huge muscles and half of them are like, I could probably be their parent. So here I am much older and I'm like, I don't have like 6 hours a day to go to the gym. Like I may as well not do this. And then it just came this year, like, I had COVID was beautiful on my body. It really like pumped up the fat cells. And then it was just at this point, I was just like, I'm not taking care of me. Like, I don't care what other people are saying anymore. It's like, I need to take care of me, which then it just clicked for me. And it was just like, wait a minute, I'm listening to everybody else except to me. And I just took the chance. And so I started to like pay attention, and I work out for me, and I work out, and some days when I don't feel like it, I don't, and I don't feel guilty about it. And that's how for me it kind of is, but it's still a journey. Like, where do I want to go with this? Right. Like, I don't want to, I had a therapist once who told me, so for me and my work, so here's the thing that sits for me in my head. I think everybody will have their one thing. I was seeing a therapist who said, well, don't worry about getting in too much shape, because, like people like a plumpy therapist. I was like, okay. Like, and so like, because they were kind of saying that because I'm masculine and I'm male, that, some people might find me, if I have too many muscles, they wouldn't like to talk to me. And I was like, so then I thought, oh geez, for my work, I shouldn't do that. So it kind of messed me up in my own head for my own work. So, again, it was even from a professional stance, right? That sometimes our professionals that we work with have to be very mindful about how they talk about bodies, and not just a trans body, but any body.
Yeah, that's very, very powerful, Jake. Thank you. Ticha, your turn.
My turn. Okay, well, I'm butch, and I also see myself as gender nonconforming, and I use they, them pronouns, as you all know. And I'm often confronted with confusion. So usually people their first impressions of me is as male, and I'm called sir. And I speak, and then they sometimes try to correct themselves and say madam, when actually I'm neither. And people's perceptions of me versus how I see myself. So the idea of having body positivity has proven difficult for so many. It's a great concept to love yourself as you are, sometimes as an antidote to how one is perceived and treated. So where does someone start with this? What's the beginning?
Good question.
Jodh.
I don't know if there is a beginning. I think it's a journey. It is a whole ass process. I you know, Kero, I know you've been watching my journey for a while, but like even mine, it was that moment. And I think for Jake as well, you mentioned there was just something that just clicked, and you were like, other people's thoughts are none of my business. Like I just have to be happy for myself. So then I just started, you know, was like, okay, we're gonna go topless at the beach. Cool. We're not gonna have to cover up anymore. We're gonna wear what we want. We're gonna do what we want, eat what we want without feeling guilty. I think it takes a lot of outside messaging and the support you have around yourselves. I think it's the conversations you're having with the people that are around you, correcting them when you're having conversations with them. I found myself earlier on in this year having some tough times during COVID, and I had to go back home to England just for a short period of time. And I knew immediately I got there, and it was the conversations were like, you've gained weight, you know, you really need to get control of that, or you should start working out. And I had to then learn, well, actually, let's unpack some of that conversation. Why is it that you feel that the validity of our relationship relies on me being slim? Or the first thing you need to look at when we speak is how chunky I've gotten. Is me being fat shameful to you? And when you unpack it around the people that love you like that, the whole conversation changed. No, that's not what I mean. I love you still. So then they realize, oh, we can't be saying these kind of things. Changing the messaging around you. I think that's definitely one way to start. Learning how not to, I as someone who's South Asian and I'm Punjabi, very proud Punjabi, and I like to eat lots of Punjabi food. But with diet culture, it likes to talk to you about how white Western food is healthy and your brown curries are not healthy. They're unhealthy and fattening, and you know you shouldn't be eating all that starch and carbs. But actually, no, there's ways to make the food, you know, just as equally healthy or you know, beneficial for your body if you're not adding too much fats in certain ways. And I've actually just watched the way my mom cooked, and I was like, there's nothing wrong with the way you're cooking this food. You're using the same amount of fats and oils as other people would use in their own cooking. So, you know, I think there's this narrative that other people's foods are fatty and healthy or bad for you, and that eating bland chicken and, you know, like plain rice is the best way forward. And, you know, I think when you start to enter those kind of territories, you make yourself very sad and unhappy. So changing the way around the world around you and making sure that the messaging that you're receiving is good and solid, I think it starts there. And it's all about internal work. I think for me, that was my journey anyway. And I don't know whether that's the way other people have felt, but I'm seeing some nodding heads. But yeah, learning how to change what's going on around you first, because that's where you're getting your information from, right?
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you say that, because one of the things I'm noticing lately is when someone is so infatuated with their body image, depending on the validation of others, and I take a look at their friends' pictures, and I'm like, well, you're surrounding yourself with these images constantly. You're never going to be satisfied. Like, and so it's changing that narrative as well of who you surround yourself with, whether it's racial or so on. Like, instead of saying, oh, I have that one black friend or that one brown friend, it's like, okay, that's, you know, but I've never seen them in the pictures with you. Are they really a friend or an acquaintance? So it's also like, oh, I have these friends, and you take a look at them, they all look like very generic in so many ways, and they all look the same. And I'm like, okay, so this is what you're surrounding yourself with, and taking a look at your surrounding, what you're just saying right now was very powerful. It is very powerful. I mean, it helped me big time in so many ways. Jake.
I know how to follow that. Okay. No, that's so funny because I guess, from my professional space, I think I always tell people, right? I think that's what finally clicked for me is that when we're always looking for affirmation from other people, we're always going to be underwhelmed. It's always going to not be enough because we all know something, somebody can tell you, you look fantastic, you look great. And if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter what they say, right?
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like when someone is like, too underweight, whatever that means or whatever, when people can be like, no, you look great. And unless you would believe it. So you have to start believing, like, I think, what was said before was like, you have to believe in yourself and you can start to have to push out the other stuff because it's only you that can believe it.
Yeah.
And until you believe it, it can't change for you. Right. And when you challenge, is my friendship built on the fact of like how big I am or how, or even my family relationships, like if that's really what it's about, it's like,
Mhm.
maybe we need to question those, which is often difficult because families and friends are complicated and complex. But I'm just saying, it's like, there is that space in there. Right. And I actually really feel into because I have a parent in my family who loves to talk about how much I weigh, high or low. And it's like, really, is this what we're talking about? So I think I really feel in that, but I stopped letting that bother me. I was like, and here it comes. I started expecting it. And then I went, here it is. And then I went, okay, bye-bye, see you later. And then I can live. So I think it's really about changing that perception that we're looking for affirmation from others and we have to find it in here.
No.
That's huge. That is huge.
Yeah, and you both spoke about the word affirmation, which leads me to my question for you about language, right? So affirmation and language go hand in hand in so many ways because, I'm non-binary, use the pronouns they, them, and people see me, look, you don't look non-binary. That's one form of things that I keep hearing. But on top of it all, I grew up with the concept of, we're talking about family right now. My family were the worst impacts on body image for me because I started going to the gym to look after my health. And they were like, oh, you're getting too skinny, you need to eat. And then, I would turn around and my grandfather, may he rest in peace, like I would turn around and my plate would be full. It's like, eat, you're skinny. And then if I'm too fat, when I put on weight, it's like, oh no, you need to stop eating. And my cousins would hold my belly. Oh, look at that kirsch, which is an Arabic word for belly, and even in church and so on. And it was getting to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm never going to be skinny enough because my brothers grew up very athletic. I never did, and so there was that impact with language on how it affected me long term, and my language on self-affirmation as well. So what would be, some of language changes that you would like to see out there when it comes to body image and body positivity that you would recommend to your clients? Like how do you change the narrative on language when it impacts our self-esteem? Jodh?
Ooh, one of my favorite parts of the conversation, I think, especially when we talk with our friends about, oh, I got a McDonald's last night, I'm going to pay for that tomorrow, or like, putting value on the food that we eat. You want to eat at McDonald's, shut up and eat it. Like, you don't need to make everyone else feel guilty about it. And so I've had to learn how to stop using that kind of language around my friends. And then I have to stop myself and think, okay, I'm making an informed choice. If I want to eat this extra chocolate and I know that, I've got a certain goal in mind or a certain thing happening in mind, I can't eat 30 chocolates and expect myself to fit into a suit that I need to fit into for a wedding. That's a whole different conversation. But but like if I know there's going to be consequences to that happening, then that's on me. I don't need to unpack those consequences on my friends or the choices that I make and make them feel guilty. We need to stop treating food like it's a reward. I think learning how to balance the way that we eat is a different conversation from putting reward and displeasure on the food that we eat. Oh, if I do this, then I can eat this. If I work this hard, then food is not a reward. It's something to be enjoyed and just enjoy it. But it doesn't need to be something that we add value on it. And so I think, changing the way in which we have our conversations in our workplaces about the lunch that we're eating or the food that we're eating, I think it starts there. and essentially just changing the way that we talk about our food. How do we enjoy our food? What do we enjoy about it? Instead of placing these negative connotations on the food that we eat.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Jake.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things I always say to people is you're going to eat it and enjoy it. Like if you're going to eat that whole thing of ice cream, by hell, just enjoy it and love it. And because I don't know whether it's scientifically true or not, but I was told by a nutritionist once, so if you go to eat something and it's quote not good for you, just enjoy it. Why are you going to feel bad about eating it and then and not enjoy it? So enjoy it. And then, you know what, the next day you can be like, great, I won't eat that pint of ice cream today. You know, maybe I'll do a little bit better than for myself as a healthy person, not because it was bad, but life is a journey around we've lost the ability to enjoy food because now it's become like we have to measure it. We have to do all these things and people judge us. And it's like, it really would be nice to have that narrative around the whoopsies, right? Like go ahead, have a weekend and then you get back and you know what, that next week you can do whatever you need to do to feel better, but you're doing it because you want to feel better. But when you had that fun, you had the fun and enjoy it.
Yeah, honestly, sorry, Kero, even just like that conversation, that piece around like the messaging we receive from our family members, like you're eating too much, you're not eating enough, like that's confusing as enough. And then from your friends and the rest of the world to be like, you're too fat or you're too skinny. It's a recipe for disaster. I think the society and our families just need to figure out getting on the same level of communication. And then also, so I think, yeah, kind of just going back to developing your own surroundings and learning how to change the language within your spaces, your bubbles, changing the changing the like messaging that you're getting, and putting it back out to your friends to also get them to look at what kind of messaging they're putting out too.
Can I just add like something about how about nonverbal communication, like department stores, going shopping, fat shaming just because you don't have sizes available to you, right? So I don't really feel necessarily I need to lose weight, but if I could lose just a little bit, I'd be at that size that I could go to the bay. But now I have to go to the big and
A lot
tall.
of pressures for everything.
I can't even go to Zara anymore. I actually got laughed at when I asked for, oh, do you have regular fit? And literally the employee there looked at me, he's like, no. I'm like, wow. I'm like, really? He's like, we only carry slim fit. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go buy you a Happy Meal. You look hungry. So that's this is where my mind went. I'm like, seriously? It's come to the point that now department stores where I used to find my size, they don't even carry them anymore. They're like, oh, we're targeting a certain demographic. I'm like, fat shaming demographic? Like, I don't understand.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, no matter what size you are and how you look, you are going to be judged at whatever it may be. And I mean, I think the one lesson I learned, and I learned it at a place that I never thought I would, it was a drag show. And this was a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. I was sitting in the audience, we were having a great time. And there was a group that was sitting just right behind us. And we were looking at various queens that came on stage to perform. And every time the queens that were a little plus size and were on stage, they were like, oh, did she not ever hear about a corset or a cincher? Those were the kind of comments we were hearing at the back. And then if someone was super skinny, they were like, oh my God, someone feed her a sandwich. And I was like, wow, make up your goddamn mind. Yeah. You're either calling them too fat or you're calling them too skinny. And I was like, I literally felt in my mind, this was like cincher to sandwich kind of a movement that was going on behind our heads. And I was like, someone just, get up and leave, because you people they have 10 times more courage than you'll ever have, because you're sitting like a mouse in the back and making these commands while they're up there on the stage. And I just felt like, you can't please anyone. You can't please everyone, and you shouldn't even need to. Yeah, you only need to please yourself.
You shouldn't be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I host Middle Eastern nights, and I love my Middle Eastern community, but we grew up with fat shaming, right? So when I have Middle Eastern nights and I put on weight, I've had people like, "Oh my God, you put on a little weight." I'm like, "Bitch, you can't afford this body right now. Get out," right? So they would be surprised with my answer. They'd be like, "What? Wait, what?" I'm like, and the confidence, all of a sudden, they find it sexy, right? The confidence that I eluded, I'm like.
Confidence.
Yeah, I love my belly. So what's your problem? I'm happy with my body right now. It will change when it changes. Right now, I'm eating my feelings, and I'm fine with that. So it's like what Ty was saying, you know. So yeah, absolutely. Antoine, your turn, Queen.
Actually, I might. Well, I'm just looking at the time, but there's a few thoughts on my mind other than the question. So you hate me, whatever, Kero. But I want to look at the episode. I'm really consumed with this topic. We addressed a lot, and Ticha, fantastic. I mean, we hear love yourself first. You're doing it for yourself. Beautiful words, but to apply them, and the reality is, as we're bombarded by all these things and comments by everybody. Away from the question that originally I wanted to go in, but I'll do that one after. I'm just thinking in general, and this just came to my mind. We do live in a world, even thousands of years ago, we live in a world that's based on image. We've been fed that, magazines, photoshops, covers, etc. I operate, a lot of you may know, I operate a media company. We have magazines. I insist on no Photoshop. I insist on representation of everybody on our covers. I believe personally in that all bodies and all of us are beautiful, but that's just but the world itself feeds us a lot of that, including the straight world, the mainstream world. But are we more in the queer community affected by it? By image and what we're fed in the image than the straight community? That's just one topic that just came to mind, because straight people still deal with the same thing. They still deal with images that are pushed at us from TV to magazine ads to covers to fashion magazines. But are we more because of our own experience as queer people? It doesn't affect us more or affect us harder to all the judgment on body image?
Who wants to go first? Jodh, Jake, Jodh, Jake.
Jump in. I think it brings to mind, and I think Ty, you've been at one of the workshops that we did around body image. There's two parts that come to mind, and I'm sure there's more reasons as to why body image affects queer communities in the way that it does. But I can speak from a lens of gay men. There's an experience of trying to equate yourselves to your heteronormative counterparts. So as much as you can display your masculinity, and I used to find myself doing this with my brothers. If I could one-up them in my masculinity, then it would prove to them that I was an acceptable gay, or it was okay that I was gay, but I was still man enough to be a man. So there was this upsurgence of like working out and, you know, ensuring you have a fit body. There's that one aspect of trying to prove something to other men that you're man enough, and even though you are gay, it's all around your masculinity. The other conversation was unpacking the history of HIV/AIDS and in the ways that it affected bodies, and guys were working out in order to essentially not look like they had HIV, and so trying to maintain muscular bodies and making sure that they looked healthy, and so that they weren't looking sick. And so that's also another part of a history that's impacted gay bodies as well.
Very good point. Yeah.
That's very powerful what you just said, because as a person living with HIV myself, I remember when in 2007, when I got my diagnosis, I started working out because I did not want to look sick.
Yeah.
Because I used to be told, it's like, yeah, like, I mean, when I tell people I'm HIV positive back in the day, they'd be like, oh, well, you don't look it. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And at first I'd be like, oh, thanks. I know I'm taking care of my health. And I had to change the language around that. I'm like, I'm sorry, there is no look for HIV. So I don't know what the heck you're talking about, right? So I had to change that narrative. And thank you for bringing that up, Joe. Very powerful. Jake.
Anything to add before we jump on?
No, that's okay. We can we can go forward.
Okay, you're gonna say that. Oh, okay, so the actual question that we wrote originally is regarding sub body types in our community. I'm not as familiar with the lesbian or the trans community and sub body types there, but I know for gay men there's the pup, the otter, the bear, the polar bear, all that sort of stuff. Is that a harmful? I know that the guys who are in those groups like to associate with a group that they feel they belong to that group. But is that harmful that we're dividing, or that our community may be divided by body types?
By subcategories, or is it bringing communities together?
Together, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Jake?
Well, I'm just going to tell you from my lens, that's a difficult one to talk about. So as a person who identifies as a trans masculine male person who likes other males, it is like a whole different world out there to, I mean, because there is this breakdown of like, are trans men really men, and do they really belong in the gay community? That is huge. I'm just going to tell you, it's a kind of a big topic. And so when you start talking about breaking them down, like you said, like in other categories and all that kind of thing, I mean, from my lens, it seems to be like, it's a lot, right? So, because it really does segregate. I'm going to say like, trans bodies from cisgender bodies.
Okay.
And then there's categories there. So, right, it's kind of like, we're almost like that. Now, I don't know, I can't speak because I wasn't a cisgender male, so I don't live in that space. So I don't know how it is for cisgender gay males.
No, thank you. Actually, your answer is brilliant to this. It just shows how much all of that creates anxiety in other people, other than just Jodh, your thoughts?
I don't know. I don't know if I've really thought about that one too much. On one hand, I feel like, yes, there is some level of harm because it's causing. If it's a label or an identity that's being used outside of like a sexual space, then maybe you are categorizing people in a certain way, and automatically categorizing them to have certain aspects or qualities or traits outside of that sexual interaction. But I think if it's within kink and play, I don't see why there's any harm in people having sexual fun.
I love both these answers, actually. Yeah, those are very powerful answers, but like a way to look at it.
It's a big topic, though, Kero. I think we can do a few episodes on this topic. So.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, at the end of the day, our work on body positivity, it is a journey that lasts a lifetime, I think. And it's safe to say that. And one that we still have so much to learn on to make the effective changes that we need to do, but for one, I think bringing a harm reduction approach to body image can be very helpful, whether it's steroid injections and how to do that safely, or body modifications or transitions. And, we need to be reminded that this is my journey. This is my body. This is my pace of the way I'm going to do things and how I need to go by it, not based on other people's timelines. And I think this is a big impactful part on the the journey of body positivity and body image and mental health. We sort of need to be selfish about our own bodies in so many ways and care for it more on a spiritual level even, and as well as mental and physical health, of course, very, very important. Now, a good balance between these three can come such a long way in learning more about yourself as an individual and how your body even functions internally and how connected you are with your bodies. Also learning about the boundaries of your body, right? Your physical boundaries, your spiritual boundaries, and so on. It's such a powerful tool to start learning these things and really understand how it plays a role in our own individual lives if you want to go into that direction. Now, I think we are due for a commercial break because I could go on talk forever about this. But we are going to be back for our segment on words of wisdom from our guests. So don't go anywhere.
I'm scheduling my post-quarantine hookup itinerary. I'm exploring every nook and cranny of self-love.
I'm engaging with online fetish communities I never even knew existed.
I am flattening that curve, honey. Ugh, tighter. Oh, tighter. Ugh.
فينه حبيبي فينه قلبي الله يعينه على الهوى وطول البعد غايب اغلى الحبايب وانا قلبي دايب وحبيبي زايد في العناد فينه حبيبي فينه قلبي الله يعينه على الهوى وطول البعد. This is no ordinary love, no ordinary love. This is no ordinary love, no ordinary love. When you came my way, you brightened every day with your sweet smile.
We are back. Guests, I want to thank you. Yay, we are so thankful to have both of you on the show today. You're both incredibly amazing guests and really gave us eye-opening and mind-opening moments for us to think about it, and hopefully our viewers as well. Now, we are at our Words of Wisdom segment from the guests, which, so what advice...
You actually created a segment. I didn't even know that we have a segment. You just created
Yeah, now you do. Surprise. It seems that this is the segment where we ask
Surprise for us too.
That's why we love this show. We don't send you the script, and it's fully genuine conversation. Now, what advice, words of wisdom would you give our viewers about today's topic on body image? Who wants to go first?
Okay. Final words.
Okay, I'll go first this time.
Go for it, Jake.
I think it's always around, so everything we've talked about, and it's like, if you can learn to be okay with your body today, knowing that you have space, that if you choose that you want to change it, you have the ability tomorrow. So it's like, instead of always looking like, where will I be? It's like, can you be okay with who you are today and know that life is a journey, and wherever you want to take it is where you're going to take it. And it's all up to you. And, you know, that's kind of like what I like to say.
Thank you.
Body
That's
positivity.
powerful, actually.
That's really beautiful, Jake. Thank you. Jodh, what say you to our viewership? I don't know why I just turned into Shakespeare all of a sudden. Go ahead.
I think our bodies are journals. They're histories of
I love that.
who we are, where we've been, what we've done. And so if you've been through a fucking journey, just be gentle with yourself. Be kind with yourself.
Love it.
And change your messaging for yourself and around you. I think that's where it kind of starts from. But being kinder and recognizing, take stock. It's important to take stock. My body's been through this. I've been through this. This is the journey my body's been through. It's impacted my body this way. When you learn to be kinder to yourself and actually process what's happened to your body over time and why your body is the way that it is, and you're unhappy with it, you know, recognizing those pieces, and when you can start to construct a bigger picture, you'll realize, actually, the picture that I painted was someone else's and not mine, and I need to start painting.
Oh, I love it. Kero, before you close, I just wanted to just mention a story from a personal experience, completely mirrors what Jodh and Jake said. When I felt this way about myself is after years of listening to the skinny thing that I heard that I was mentioning at the beginning. And even when I started going out into queer spaces and feel uncomfortable because everybody was big and buffed and whatever, or a bear or blah, blah, blah. My moment was on the dance floor at the barn, where I was just fucking sick and tired of listening to people telling me that I'm skinny. So, and looking at everybody having a good time, shirts off, whatever, and just took my shirt off and thought, fuck it. I can't continue dealing with what I've been told my whole life. That's the message that I have to live with. And since then, I feel that my life, my personal journal changed of how I look at my body from then. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Antoine. I mean, it could have waited for me to finish and he could have added that, but I'm just kidding.
Bite me.
No, I mean, but seriously, and I'm gonna ask my co-host. You're seeing your warm, amazing, beautiful faces, and your passion with every episode that we put in always warms my heart, and I always look forward to recording.
Love
this.
you
Now,
guys.
yeah, I love you guys a lot, big time. Any final words or comments that you want to share with us based on what was said, or any words of wisdom, or how you feel about today's episode? Let's start with you, Ty.
I think I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier, and that is, you are not going to be able to please everyone, and you're not going to be able to get an applause from everyone. Who you need that from, the validation needs to come from yourself. As long as you're comfortable, nobody else gives a shit at the end of the day. So I think that's what we need to move forward with when it comes to body image.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
I love that, Ty. Thank you. Viviana.
I'm gonna give a comment here a little bit controversial, and it's gonna be, yes, we know that this topic it sometimes might be an issue for a lot of people, but as a trans woman, we need to learn to know how much happy do we want to be with our body as well. And it is okay to change things, and it is okay to modify things as long as you feel happy, not because somebody's telling you, oh, you need to love your body just the way it is. It means you love your body. It means you're gonna love the body the way you wanted to love it. And if that requires to make changes, make those changes as long as you're happy. So that's gonna be my comment right here.
Yes, honey, yes. Serve it. I love that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Viviana. Ticha.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment because there was some quick little comment Jodh said about kink and being in kink. What's interesting about the kink community and body acceptance and consent, and I think there's some people who found a place there because when they go there, it's all about consent and contractual are and what you want to be and how you want to be presented. You could be disabled, you could be any body type, and you can find acceptance.
Right.
Just of consent, that little thing of consent and acceptance is really interesting. So I just wanted to brought that up, and I thought that was interesting. Thank you.
That's very, very powerful. I really love that, Ticha. Thank you. Antoine, again, do you have anything to add?
I'm good.
Well, my line is cliche as cliche can be, but if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here? Right? We hear that line a lot now. And I'm grateful for that line, even though I used to know that before, but I think more people need to be reminded of that. Because it's true, if you can't love yourself, it's going to be hard to love someone else at the end of the day. It makes it so difficult because you're just going to feel like you're never enough at the end of the day. So by loving yourself, enjoying your own company, loving your own body, whether if you want to make the changes or not, like Viviana said, and it's
up to you.
It is it is, but this brings us to the end of our episode. So till then, viewers, the time here is to say goodbye, and you can catch this episode online on Facebook, on YouTube pages, and the details can be found in the description. Until then, keep safe, stay diligent, and most importantly, keep being resilient, and love from our queer family to yours. Goodbye.
Bye, guys. Bye, folks.
Bye.